Hi, in this video we're going to cover leadership power, what it is and how to use it. So first, let's get a definition of power. Robert Dahl said, A has the power over B to the extent that A can get B to do something that B would not otherwise do. And honestly, I can't think of a better way to explain what power is. But let's get into it a little bit deeper. So generally, there are two categories of leadership power. Assigned power is power that comes from occupying a position in an organization. Think of a manager in a business, a school principal, a city manager, or a mayor. Now, emergent power, on the other hand, comes from the support and acceptance of others. So think of a coworker or a classmate who you respect. They have power because they have earned the respect of others. Now, at this point, you may have noticed that some leaders have both assigned and emergent power, while others may only have one or the other. Later in the video, we'll discuss how to effectively use both kinds of power. But first, I want to emphasize something really important. One of the most common mistakes leaders make is when they overuse their assigned power and underuse their emergent power. I'll say it again because it's so important. One of the most common mistakes leaders make is when they overuse their assigned power and underuse their emergent power. Okay, so let's look a little closer at where power comes from. Some of the most commonly cited research identifies 6 sources of social power, and I think they map pretty nicely to the concepts of assigned and emergent power. The sources of assigned power are legitimate power, which comes from the authority to make decisions, reward power, which comes from control over rewards, believe it or not, and coercive power, which comes from the ability to discipline and punish. The sources of emergent power are referent power, which comes from being well-liked, expert power, which comes from being regarded as an expert, and information power, which comes from having information that others want. Now, let's discuss each of these sources in more detail. So, legitimate power is the power to make decisions that others will have to follow. So, you may think of like maybe a finance leader may have authority to allocate budgets. A manager may have authority to set schedules. Or a teacher has the authority to assign grades. Okay, those are all examples of legitimate power. And again, remember that legitimate power is one of our assigned sources of power. So, you may be wondering, well, how do I use it? In a word, I would say use it justly. Okay, what does that mean? Well, now you won't be perfect, but strive for decisions that are fair and based on evidence and in the best interest of those involved. But no matter what you do, do not make decisions based on personal affection or animosity. All right, let's move on to the next one. Reward power, again, another assigned power. So what is it? Well, it's the ability to influence behavior by controlling rewards such as compensation, benefits, or other perks. So some examples of this reward power, maybe a teacher gives extra credit to motivate a certain behavior, right? So maybe a teacher says, hey, I want you guys to attend this optional lecture or something, and so I'm going to give you extra credit if you show up, okay? That's an example of using the teacher's reward power. Another example is maybe a manager gives a bonus to the most productive factory worker. Again, another example of reward power. Now, how do you use it? Well, in a word, carefully. Because research on the efficacy of rewards show that rewards can have some unintended consequences. So although sometimes reward power can be very effective and useful, we should kind of be careful because sometimes offering rewards gets us different outcomes than what we thought we were going to get. Okay, so next let's look at coercive power. And again, this is another assigned power. So what is it? Well, it's the ability to influence behavior through administering or threatening punishment. So here are some examples. Maybe we say an employee will be fired if they're absent too many times. Okay, so we say, we make that threat, and then the employee isn't absent too many times, right? That's a use of coercive power. Or maybe a teacher fails a student for plagiarism. Okay, again, we want to avoid plagiarism, so we're maybe going to use the coercive power of failing the class, that punishment, to prevent plagiarism. All right. Now, how do we use it? sparingly. So really, we tend to only want to use it in maybe emergency situations, right? So, if there's an emergency, maybe we want first responders to maybe have some of that coercive power to keep everybody safe, okay? Maybe another example is to curtail particularly toxic behavior, right? So plagiarism is a particularly toxic behavior, so maybe it's appropriate to kind of use that coercive power to prevent plagiarism, okay? Or, sometimes we just need to do it as a last resort, right? If we try to use other sources of power to get the outcomes that we need, and sometimes if it just isn't enough, and if the goal or the thing we're trying to accomplish is important enough, maybe we can use coercive power as a last resort. Now, referent power is our first emergent power that we're going to talk about in this video. And what it is, it's the power that comes from being well-liked. So a couple examples, maybe a teacher who is well-liked by their students. So this teacher, because they're well-liked, maybe they don't have to resort to reward power or coercive power to get students to get their assignments done or to work hard in class. The students do it simply because they like the teacher. Okay, that's an example of referent power. Or maybe we think of a colleague that is well liked by their peers, right? And maybe this colleague isn't the manager, but everyone does what this colleague says because they like the colleague and they trust the colleague. Okay, so those are both some examples of referent power. Now, how do we use it? I would say use it graciously. So one of the surest ways to lose referent power is to take it for granted. But as you treat others with genuine care, trust, and respect, you can continue to build trust or referent power with those that you're working with. Our second type of emergent power is expert power. So what it is it's power that comes from other people perceiving that person as being competent. Okay, so maybe we look at the chief financial officer is trusted in financial issues, right? We say, hey, that person, they've worked in finance for a long time, they got their degree in finance, maybe they know, and maybe we should listen to them when we're looking at financial issues, okay? Or maybe we'll look at a health recommendation that is followed because it was given by a doctor, right? Maybe the doctor isn't coercing or using rewards or anything like that, right? We just do what the doctor says because we're like, they're the doctor. They should know better than me, okay? Now, how do we use expert power? I would say we use it humbly. So just because you're the expert doesn't mean that you're infallible. So others may trust and defer to you with your expertise, but you still might have some blind spots. And so it's still a good idea to consult with others, maybe even others who aren't an expert in that area. So it can be very powerful, but just use it humbly. Our last type of emergent power is what we call information power. And what this is, it's a little harder to define, but really it's power that comes from having information that others want or need. So maybe think of a manager who knows about an important organizational decision, right? That manager maybe has power when they know something that others don't. Or maybe a salesperson who knows important information about a customer, right? And so that information maybe gives that salesperson maybe a leg up or gives them maybe a little bit of power. Now, how do we use information power? I would say we need to use it generously. So when you hoard information, it helps no one. But when you share information, you gain access to the good judgment of everyone on your team. So try to use it generously. Okay, so that's the end of our video on power. I hope it's been helpful and useful to you. But one thing I'd like to know is, how have you seen these types of power either used or abused? And if you can, go ahead and share that in the comments, and I look forward to reading what you come up with. Other than that, that's it. So thanks for watching.